Talk amongst yourselves while I find the next meeting. And this is actually John's meeting. I always run into this thinking, but it's John, so he's the one that's. Okay, John, I'm all set when you are.
Okay, great. Let's just start with a very quick round of introductions. We only have 30 minutes, so maybe just your name and a very quick update. So I'm John Nowak, the co-executive director of CHIP. Lori?
Lori Fleming, co-executive director of CHIP.
Jolene?
Jolene Crone, deputy administrator, clinical director with the Salish Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization.
Chief McCurran?
I'm Folsom Fire Rescue.
Melina?
Melina Stott with the Fletcher Group.
Patrick?
Muted, Patrick.
Sorry, my dog was going to answer. Patrick Johnston with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Jefferson County affiliate.
Jim DiCiani, or sorry, I'm going back a ways.
You call for me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Novelli, executive director, Okanagan Discovery. I used to be Okanagan Discovery Behavioral Healthcare. I've been on Zoom since 9:30 this morning. I've been on a Washington Council meeting for the whole day, and actually National Council for used to be behavioral health, it's now mental wellness, did a presentation. There's more money coming out than you can even think about. There are literally billions of dollars over the next couple of years. So just to talk about confusion.
Wow.
So. Greg?
Greg Brotherton, County Commissioner.
And Alyssa?
Alyssa Rodriguez, administrative assistant at Jefferson Healthcare.
Lori, you mind pulling up slides? Are you okay to do that today? Thank you. So here's a quick overview of the agenda. We're already a little bit behind because we started a little late, but the main focus is going to be to work on the strategic framework. And I spent quite a bit of time between the last meeting and this meeting updating the framework. So you'll have some updated information to look at. And I actually wanted to share with all of you that the framework is starting to look pretty good. I'm pretty excited about where we are, and I feel like we're kind of at a point where the skeleton's there and we may need to put a little more flesh on the bones, but there's a lot of information on there. So there's a couple of issues that we want to kind of check in on. One is transportation for people in the working age group. And Greg, I know that's a topic that you have a little bit of information on. It's not really addressed in that right now. The plan that we have is, you know, some of the information has been moved to some of the other age bands. So we took some of the housing information and put it in the elder age band. And then I just want to review for all of you that our goal is to have this completed by August. And I think we're on track to be able to do that. So what we really want to do today is kind of hone in on the activities that are within the plan. Take a look at the goals, the objectives and the strategies, make sure they're kind of hitting the mark, and then really hone in on the activities. And I think one of the things that Lori and I have been talking about is trying to get this tuned up this meeting and next meeting, and then in the August meeting, look at who might be responsible for the individual activities that are in the plan. I think Lori sent the framework out to you guys ahead of time, and what I tried to do again was put some more detail in. So the parts that are in red are the additions that I made to the plan. Because the goal of you know, improving social determinants didn't have a target or a time frame associated with it, I added the language to say specifically increase the capacity of housing in Jefferson County by XX% by 2025 reduce the percentage of residents living below the poverty level by 2% by 2025. And that currently we're at 13% of our residents are at poverty level. So that would take it to 11%. And so one question for you guys is housing capacity the best measure? And what do you think the specific measure should be, the percentage that we improve it by? So if we could start maybe with that question. And I'm not sure who might have thoughts about that, but I'd love to hear them if people have ideas.
I have an idea. I think maybe honing down to just rentals would be a way to address this cohort significantly, and that's where we have a complete absence in Jefferson County. So it would be easy to improve. So yeah, I would say rental capacity and maybe reducing the ratio of short-term rentals. Been talking to DCD today too about shutting off permitting, a moratorium on short-term rentals in Jefferson County, and and also maybe licensing them. So there's multiple ways to disincentivize using ADUs for short-term rentals. So I'd say looking at long-term rentals as a metric.
Great. And I think, Greg, if I recall, that the data for that right now is that there is zero capacity for long-term rentals in Jefferson County. Is that accurate? Is that what your understanding is?
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to take a whirl at what percent of capacity might be a reasonable figure by 2025? Availability? 10%?
I mean, I'm not sure if we can even, if the percent is zero, anything is 100% improvement, right? I mean, I'd say maybe not using a percent, but talking about a hard number, 100 active rentals by 2025.
Okay. I'm going to stick that in there as a placeholder, and we can tune that again at the next meeting, but I think that's a great place to start that conversation. Anybody feel any anxiety about that? Patrick, did you?
Oh, I think the commissioner's right on the mark there, and that's a good solid measure that can be tracked. And then commensurate with that, I'm wondering about the number of people who are actually seeking housing within the rental market, if there's any way to get a handle on that. It's one thing to make available rentals for which there is no absence of applicants. It's also useful to know, in my view, how many people are actually finding rental housing.
I haven't seen a metric for that, Patrick, but I can take a whirl and see if there's information about that out there.
Yeah, there'll be some anecdotal stuff, but we want to know that rentals are there, which is the key to the whole thing, of course, and then that people are actually availing themselves of it, which I can't imagine that they wouldn't.
Yeah.
This is Jolene. Is there a reason, I would just recommend that we include OLICAP as coordinated entry in these conversations related to transitional and supportive housing?
I believe that Cherish is invited to this meeting, but she didn't attend today. But I agree that she would be a good one to have here as well.
Talking under strategy 1A, where we specifically reference Bayside, is that right?
Oh, is that what you're referring to?
I'm actually wondering if there's a metric that these organizations are already reporting on that we want to improve. Because to add another data point may conflict with things they have to report on to state and other programs. And so I know that anyone who receives housing subsidies from the state is required to report into HMIS data system, and it's a pretty standard data set. And so I'm just wondering if we can borrow from that.
Melina, do you know what any of those measures are off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's usually like percent of people who leave transitional housing into permanent housing or the type of housing. They also track annually the percent of income increase as another measure to your, I guess, interest in the poverty reduction.
Yeah.
So they're measuring who's exiting to homelessness, who's exiting to any other reason other than finding housing. The number of days to access housing is another metric that folks use for that.
And do you know if Cherish would know those? Is she the one that would be reporting those numbers, or is it someone?
Yeah. So
Kathy
only
Morgan.
CAP would be reporting them to HMIS on behalf of Commerce. Yeah.
So if I email Cherish and ask her what she's currently reporting and what she thinks might be appropriate for tracking how we're doing in terms of.
John, I think Kathy Morgan would be the appropriate person to contact. And Bayside has that information too, and I've seen them present a number of people move from transitional into permanent housing. They also capture what county they move to, and that's informational, though dispiriting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's also you're tracking the rental payments too, and the cost of rent relative to the income. And so you're also kind of, getting an idea of what is the average income of people coming into these settings, and when they leave for housing, what is the average rental, so that we can kind of understand the market.
Okay. Those were great suggestions, kind of exactly what we're looking for. Any other comments on this first page? I think we have 6 to go through. So, all right, next page.
Both 1A and 1B call out 2 specific examples, but I think that really, we can tell you exactly how many people are going in Pfeiffer House, right? I think it has 8 units or 6 units, but that's easy to find. But it seems like getting standardized data, as Milena said, from all of the housing agencies would be more appropriate.
Okay. All right. So Greg, this is more on the rental arena. And I actually did not make any significant changes to what had already been included in the plan for this one, other than changing the.
I will say that there was an update here from the last meeting, and that is that it was Peggy Webster, who isn't able to be here today. She sends her apologies, but she will be at the next one. She had connected with a resource who was very much interested in developing a template on how to identify the sites, and working that template one time here in this area, and creating a template from it that we could use for other things. So, but Peggy knows more about that, but I wanted to note that's the update that's in this particular one since the last time you all looked at it together.
And this is that metric of 0% vacancy rate in Jefferson County for housing right now.
So maybe we have to wait on that one until Peggy's here.
Yeah.
Maybe in the first slide, sorry, I guess I jumped to the slide 2 in my suggestions, but Habitat is also the group that is making the most owner-occupied workforce housing, and should be referenced as well.
You're saying it should be referenced as in a strategy, or just on the who we're collecting metric data from?
Collecting data from Habitat as well. They put 53 workforce housing folks into houses in Jefferson County. That's pretty significant, and they're working on a pretty 20 units down on Landis Street. So for like owned workforce affordable housing, I think they're probably the biggest contributor locally.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going back to page 3 now.
Can I throw my own efforts in here? I'm not sure if there's a place for them, but there's 2 particular projects I'm working on that I think are relevant, and I'm not sure how they nest. One is preventing renters from losing their homes. I'm working with a local investor group right now to try to come up with a low interest down payment loan for yet another renter whose landlord is selling their house, because it's a great market right now, and trying to keep them in that home by local investing. And I just think that's an opportunity. If this works, I think that it has come up again and again in my experience, anecdotally. I don't know how many it happens, but that's something I like to pursue. And boarding houses, I'm looking at leasing a bed and breakfast and having the owner operators run long-term rental instead of short-term rentals. And I think a cultural conversation about this is important, and that could be a communication strategy to encourage a different kind of approach to housing.
Greg, I'm going to take a whirl at weaving that in with some of the other stuff, and maybe you could look at how I weave that in there before the next meeting, and let me know if you have it right, or feel free to send me kind of your language about how you think that would fit in, and I'll put it into the plan.
That sounds great. I know we're short on time.
So this one gets at the poverty metric, and we talked a little bit about that. I felt like these activities are great, but they might be a little short on really addressing poverty in our community. That seems like it's just a multi-layered problem. So my note really to this group is, are there any other strategies that we can employ to address poverty in our community? And let's do this. If someone has one off the top of their head, great. If not, we'll send a copy of this out, and I would love, most of this got in there by people adding information between meetings. So if you have thoughts about that, if you want to fire away now, great. If not, feel free to add between now and the next time.
2 quick suggestions is community land trusts and I forgot the second one. Sorry.
I'm just looking at Melina's note. Do you want to?
Oh yeah, sorry. Something Greg said reminded me. So Oxford is recovery housing. And so they usually house like 8 to 12 people in a home in recovery. And they build these nice recovery communities. Well, they're losing, for every 4 homes that they open in our state, they're losing 3 because they don't own these homes. They rent them from people who own them. And the market is doing so well that everybody's selling the homes. So it's impossible to increase the stock of housing for folks, with certain income brackets. And so I just wanted to add to what, Greg said around a focus on making sure we keep those rentals available for people who need them.
Yeah, maybe we could do something that would damage the housing market in Washington State, because it sounds like that would improve a lot of these issues.
Termites.
I can bring a tent encampment to your neighborhood.
All right.
I remember my other one, regulatory reform. There's something, we build impediments in, and I love to leverage the Homestead Exclusion Act and get people into rural residential land where they're protected.
All right. So page 4 has a new goal. And this is really about access to medical and behavioral health care in Jefferson County. So the goal is to develop a detailed plan to address service gaps for medical and behavioral health in Jefferson County by 2023. And the strategies are really around activities that would allow us to look at how we could develop a plan to improve access to behavioral health. So the first step is kind of breaking down the current structure, figuring out where the gaps are. And I decided to take out, it did say medical, behavioral health, social and housing and employment. And because we were covering poverty and housing in the previous goal, I decided to take that out. And then this is a type of metric that for me is a milestone. And so that the milestone goal is that there would be a plan in place by 2023. And you can see the individual activities that go underneath that. So any feedback you have on that?
under activities, we're really trying to build a housing hub that combines behavioral health services and housing services into one campus and have, one-stop shopping. And I think there's going to be money for that, I think. And if we, have shovel-ready projects, it will be appropriate activity that is actually.
Greg, can you talk, I know we're tight on time, but can you just talk a little bit more about what that would look like from the behavioral health side of things? Would that be somewhere where people could go to, get access to behavioral health services, or how would that work?
It's, early days, but the location we're looking at right next to DSHS would have to have multi-use functionality. It couldn't just be a residence. So we've been talking to a lot of behavioral health agencies about what services they would like to offer there, whether they'd like, a co-used space or dedicated space. So early in the talk, but I think whatever is appropriate could be there. Some agencies are looking to expand right now and would love to have an office there, and some are kind of at maximum capacity and would like to be a partner, but not full-time. But there was unanimous interest in the concept.
New market tax credits are a funding opportunity for things like that. I don't know if that's been a part of the conversation, but there's the health and housing model fits the new market tax credit, and they're not competitive.
Great. I just talked to Erica at Craft 3, who offered that there are a lot of new market tax credits right now that are unspent. So that's great.
John, is it 2023 that you said that this part of the plan would be completed?
Yes, that the plan part of the behavioral health and medical care would be completed. As we go further, Patrick, there's more detail about the kind of things that might be in that plan, but the idea is that the plan would be complete in about a year and a half.
Now the plan evolves. I understand that, and as items are as specific elements of the plan are developed, the plan doesn't have to be completed in order to go ahead with doing things. In other words, it
does not. I totally agree, and especially if there are things in that that we can do easily, and like this quick reference card that we put out with services in it was a simple thing, and it was easy to do, and we just did it. And I think anything that's like that we could do.
Well, and the plan obviously is very important for all of the usual reasons, but it also gives people talking points and so forth.
A point for collaboration.
Oh,
I see Jim.
I know we're short on time, but I'm gonna make a little bit of prediction here because it's rapidly moving. The big future for behavioral health in this state is going to change. We're going to be, I believe, in the next couple of years, you're going to see a growth of certified behavioral health clinics. There are 42 states now that are part of it. Kansas and Illinois just applied. It was granted yesterday. It was the day before. This state is looking at it seriously, and these certified behavioral health clinics are going to have a much different funding source than they're generally funded. And it's actually going to be more like an FQHC for like my mental health agency, which is going to create more access to services because it's all under one roof. So it's a combination of primary care, behavioral health, things like that. So next couple of years, I think you're going to see a lot of movement that direction. We already have Peninsula Behavioral Health is already has a $2 million grant to move in that direction. I was already contacted by Senator Cantwell to see about our interest, even though we're small potatoes, but we actually have quite a bit of the stuff to go in that direction. So it's just kind of it'll change the face of how we're paid. So it's a much different payment model than we're used to.
It would be great, Jim, if we could have that on a near future agenda. That's big stuff that you just talked about.
Yep, I can do something about that. That'd be great. So,
Lori, I think, we're down to 3 minutes. If we could just look at the last, I think it's 4 slides real quick, and I can at least present what's in them. So, so this is kind of the timeline for what's left. We want to make sure we have the strategic framework completed by August. We're hoping to do some kind of assignment of responsibility in August. Lori and I are going to rewrite the narrative part of the CHIP plan, and we would present that to the joint boards, which is the hospital and the health board together, get any final feedback. And then our hope is that this group would continue to meet to execute some of the items that are in the framework that we're looking at. What I would like to do, or what I will do, is send out the framework with my notes, my changes in it to you guys this week, which I guess is tomorrow, and have you guys please feel free to, make any additions or notes or any, just turn on track changes or use a different color so I can tell where you've made additions to it. And I think, any work that can occur between times that we meet, this 30 minutes just goes by so quickly. And Greg, I'm so thankful. I mean, you had a lot of information for us and a lot of things that were helpful. So I know your time is very precious, but anything you can add is gold. So feel free to, even if you took 15 minutes and just typed up a few notes to kind of lead us down the right path, that would be awesome.
Will do.
So-
So I haven't done more homework.
So I will send that out tomorrow, and feel free, it's an Excel spreadsheet, but feel free to just, make any notes on it and make any additions and send it back to Lori or me or both of us. And I'm really, like I said, I'm really impressed with how far we are along, but I think as we learned in this meeting, the landscape is changing so quickly that it's hard to write a plan at any point because